Hi, are you in the green industry in New Jersey? The New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association can help you. Visit NJNLA.org to find out how we can help you grow your green industry business.
So we're walking through a phenomenal, and I truly mean this, a phenomenal bed of what I have come to consider now my friends. And these are native plants. And we are with Richard McCoy of Richard McCoy Horticultural Services. And I would like, if you could just give a short synopsis of what it is that you do, a little bit of your history, and then a little bit of history of what this garden, what it was, and then why you transformed it into what it is today.
Sure. Well, thank you, Bruce, for being here, and thank you, Lori and NJNLA. So we started our company in 1995. In 2000, as a conventional company using synthetics and non-native plants like most landscape contractors do and still do. In 2005, we transitioned to organic, ecological, with more of a focus on sustainability. So this property, when we took it over, it was about 5 years ago, 2014, 16-ish. It was managed poorly. It had some great history to it, but a lot of the plants have been mispruned and just really, we really just need to redo the gardens. There was no focus on ecology. Most of the plant material that was here had to be sprayed to be kept up and looking decent. Again, poor pruning practices, so we really had to gut and restart the whole process. So when we did that, obviously with our company, again, we do things ecologically, organically, so the whole focus was going to be on sustainability and how can we manage this property for the future landscapes. So obviously native plants are the focus. We installed a rain garden, all the turf's organic, and that's, there was some push and pull about how much lawn do we need. One of our focuses is trying to remove turf grasses from our landscapes, but I understand that people do have families and it's not all about plants, so we try to strike that balance. So we did that, and I think we really came up with our clients were thrilled with the property, and I think there's a really good balance of turf grass for the kids to play, and us to get our fill of native plants on the property.
Now, you mentioned, and this is one of those buzzwords, but you mentioned rain garden. And when I first came across that concept, it struck me as strange, because how can a garden be about rain? And but the more when you're into it, it makes sense. But when you first hear of it, it seems aloof, strange. So where is the rain garden here, and how did you work it into the design?
So the rain garden's right behind us. It's this little spot down here where you see the pycnanthum and the helianthus. So it's about 400 square feet. And over the course of 5 years, it'll collect and infiltrate about 2 million gallons of water.
2 million?
With an M, million. 2 million gallons. And the way we worked it in was we just sort of balanced our pathway here with the native plants on either side. And obviously we had to do some calculations for square footage of roof and runoff. And it just seemed like the appropriate place to put it.
So the water from here is actually coming from the roof of the structure in front of us?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And is this a difficult process for people to bite off, or?
It's not. I think one of the biggest things that our company and people in this sort of segment of our field is education, and I think that's one of the biggest things is education. So I wouldn't suggest that somebody just jumps into putting a rain garden in. I think they need to do their diligence and make sure that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, due diligence is important, but again, the key point is it's not the feature of the garden. It's worked in, so it's ecological but beautiful, and I think that is what a lot of people sort of miss, that part of the whole concept.
And it doesn't need to be something that's actually a focus, like you said, a focus of the garden. It just needs to be worked in.
Sure. All right, well, let's take a little walk around and look at some plants and see how you do what you do.
Great.
So over here, I happen to really like this plant, and I stumbled on this plant probably 8 years ago. Didn't realize its total potential. So this is Mountain Mint. Could you just talk to a little bit of why this is such a great plant for the garden?
Well, it's great too, not only for the design features, the structural features of it, and the great foliage, but it's great for pollinators. One of the things we learned as we started doing things organically with our lawns is, we're not spraying chemicals on our lawns, and we're not doing grub control. So as we started planting natives, we realized that the need for grub control in lawns was less. And perfect example for this pycnanthum is it gets a parasitic wasp for grubs. So you bring in the beneficials, and the beneficials take care of the unwanted pests. And pycnanthum's great for that.
So it also has a minty fragrance to it. It doesn't spread, like people hear the word mint and they run, but this is not super aggressive.
Right.
And because it has that minty fragrance, the deer don't like it.
Correct.
So even if you're in deer country, you can certainly use this plant.
Yeah, it's a versatile plant too. I mean, it takes a lot of different conditions. It's it's really, I think the conditions culturally for it are more of a border woods edge plant.
Yes.
But I mean, this gets full sun from sun up to sundown, so it's pretty adaptable.
Very much so.
Yep.
And in front of us here, this is purple coneflower. And what I enjoy about this is that when the flowers are out, they're obviously purple. That makes sense. And it has this cone, this bristly cone in the middle. But when the flowers first start to open, they're green or almost white. So it gives you a long season of interest.
Right. Nice contrast.
Very nice contrast. And again, great plant for pollinators. So and great for cut flowers as well.
Right.
So
and these are species. They're
species. Yep.
Not a cultivar.
So speaking of that, let's just touch on this plant here. We walked past, and I should have addressed this first. So what are we looking at here? What's this guy?
This is Chalone, Leonii. It's the species of the cultivar hot lips.
Okay. So the common name is turtlehead.
Right.
It literally looks like a turtle's head when it comes into flower. So that's why it gets the name. And what's interesting is that you notice this one has lighter foliage to it, and the one on the far side over there has much darker colored foliage and a little bit lower. And so this is the species type here, if I'm correct.
Right, that is a species.
And the hot lips is over there, which is a little bit lower. What would be the advantage of planting the seedling or the species type versus just all hot lips?
Well, studies have shown that the species plants are better for the pollinators.
Okay.
When you start to, and this is not true with all species of plants. I know Penn State has done some work with asters, and they've shown that some of the species asters are actually more beneficial for pollinators than some of the cultivar is more beneficial than the species. So.
Okay.
But in most cases, you want to grow the species because that's the plant that's adapted with the insect that's most common with that plant. Evolution has had those two work together and grow up together.
Yep.
So it's that evolutionary combination that makes the species work over the cultivars.
Great. So let's just take a walk on down and see what we can see around the corner down here. I love how you laid all this out. It's really awesome. So worked it in with some woody plants. So really enjoy this. So Richard, we're standing in front of electric mowers, electric string trimmers, electric chainsaw, electric backpack blower. This is progressive. I've never seen such a large battery operated machine before. Can you give a little history of this, just a short clip, and why this is so important?
Well, for us, it's twofold. One, it's it's our clients. Having a quiet landscape company, obviously being environmentally friendly, and it's it's healthier for our team to. It goes along with what we do with our company. I mean, we manage properties organically. We don't use synthetic chemicals. So to get our teams away from the exhaust from the combustion engines is definitely a positive.
That's very much a positive. And I was listening to your team work in the backpack blower before, and of course that is one of the nemesis in a lot of neighborhoods.
Right.
And that was truly quiet. So, the mowers obviously make a little noise when the blades turn around, but I was impressed at how quiet that was.
Yeah, the backpack blower is quiet. Chainsaw, the thing about the chainsaws is you're so used to having that noise of the chainsaw constantly running. So, like I mentioned earlier, one of the first things I did was I worked as an arborist, and you get used to the cues of hearing that chainsaw. So it's just like the mowers and the chainsaws. It's like I try to equate to people. It's sort of like driving a standard transmission and then learning how to drive a manual transmission.
Yeah, yep.
It's a similar process. There's just different ways to go about it.
Yep.
The battery power is good. The blades are good, strong. We haven't had an issue with them yet.
Yep. No, I'm really impressed, and I'm hopeful that more people follow your lead on this, and we'll have a much quieter neighborhood in the future.
Yeah, me too. The other thing about this too, like I mentioned too, the education is and somebody who was very helpful with us was the group AGZA, the American Green Zone Alliance. Okay. They provided a lot of guidance to us, and Dan Mabe was awesome in the training program, getting us started on this. And we're working on transitioning to completely electric, and we're hoping that we're going to have a solar paneled truck in not too short order, so we can have a completely battery powered maintenance team.
Very awesome. Well, hats off to you and the whole group.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Hi, this is Lori from the NJNLA. Recent legislation mandates that you must be participating in an apprenticeship program in order to get your public works contractor registration. The NJNLA can be an affordable option for you. For more information, visit our website at njnla.org. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Mary Tabbitt from Growing Green. I've got our host, Bruce Crawford here. And Bruce, where are we today?
Today we are at Sunset Farmstead, and this is a new nursery that started up about 3 years ago. And that's the farm fields are behind us. And their focus is growing plants for pollinators. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a native plant, but it has to be a plant that will feed various moths, butterflies, bees, what have you. So it's exciting. This is cutting edge. Some of the other gardens that we've been to actually have their plants in the garden. So it's moving out. It's becoming quite the main focus for a lot of designers today.
Well, I know you know everything about this, so I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay. Well, let's go into the field and see what we can find.
Sounds good.
So Daryl and Carrie, I'm fascinated by the soil that we're using here, and see, I know you mixed your own and so forth, and I saw you working it together, and I know every nursery has their own particular soil. So, and soil means a lot, because everybody looks at soil and they go, oh, it's dirt. But in reality, when you're irrigating, when you're fertilizing, soil is really the plant. So could you talk a little bit about, with the soil that you're working with here, maybe a little about why you're doing things in number one containers, and how you based your nursery on this?
Sure. The big thing for us was, what everybody doesn't think about is the brown stuff, which you said, the dirt.
The dirt.
The soil. I mean, it's really important to us that we can provide the plants with good roots and a good foundation to grow their plants. So rather than focusing on synthetic salts, which is what most fertilizers are,
correct,
we wanted to focus on what roots plants really want, like what you would find in a prairie or out in the woods, which is sugars and carbohydrates.
Okay.
So how do we get that? Well, we get that from the basis of a leaf compost, which was sourced locally for us, and that's what this is a combination of leaf compost, pit moss, which is recycled cellulose fiber, and rice hulls. The rice hulls add porosity and some soil structure.
Okay. So I'm sensing here that you're going with a low carbon footprint too.
That is true.
Okay.
We actually do get from pit moss a certificate every year about how much carbon?
How much carbon emissions were not put out due to the product that we purchased.
That's very cool.
Volume of product.
Very cool. So I'm liking that. So,
yeah.
And what are native this American Beauties? What's that about?
So American Beauties is a program. Well,
it's a brand.
It's a brand. It's a brand, and that promotes native plants and it promotes pollinators, and it is geared towards independent garden centers. So you cannot find this at your big box stores. You can only find it at your independent garden center.
Okay.
And with the marketing and the, because you get a really pretty plant tag that's got a ton of information with the containers, with the branding on the containers and the the green container itself, it really stands out in the nursery. So someone coming to the garden center looking for native plants, it's very easy to spot them amongst everything else. And it was something we found out about and thought it fit really well with what we're doing here, which is growing plants for pollinators.
So another little aside too, and then it's just that everyone uses black containers, but when you use a green container, it should keep the soil a little bit cooler too, I would think.
Exactly. It has its pluses and minuses, to be honest with you. This time of year it has its pluses because it'll keep the soil a little bit cooler. Earlier in the spring, when you're trying to get plants to grow, it still keeps the soil cooler,
yeah.
So that root zone doesn't get the temperature. So some things, not really slower, it's more natural with where we are, and that's the other thing that we're really striving for, is waking our plants up naturally with, you know, our temperature and our climate, and putting them to sleep in the fall, you know, in the same manner. When Mother Nature decides it's time is when it's time for us to start thinking about fall and winter. We do not, as you guys have seen already from some panning, we have no greenhouses or hoop houses.
So understandable. So working with these, and then you're planting plugs. And can you talk a little bit about what the plant is that we're looking at here, and you know, why you pick certain plugs to be potting up and up potting?
So today we are planting Solidago rugosa fireworks.
Solidago.
Yes.
What is Solidago?
The common name is, I totally forgot.
Goldenrod.
Goldenrod.
I totally forgot.
I totally forgot. The common name is goldenrod, and it actually is a really important plant for pollinators in a couple ways. One, it blooms yellow in the springtime, in the fall, excuse me, blooms yellow in the fall, so it's a big nectar source for moths, for bees, for butterflies, all sorts of beneficial insects. But it also is a host plant to, I think it's 130, right around there, different species. So different insects need this plant for their larvae to feed on and to survive. So it hosts that many. So it's kind of like the greatest of all times when you talk about plants that you want in your garden to support pollinators. This is definitely one of those plants.
So by host plant, it's the dinner table for some, as they eat the leaves, and for others they're getting the nectar and the pollen. So
absolutely
perfect plant.
And then for us, it's beautiful in the fall. It's a wonderful display. So so even in our own gardens, we benefit by how beautiful it looks.
Yep. And then Doug Ptolemy, in a couple of his books, wrote about this quite heavily, because he mentioned how the root system is such that it actually allows deep water infiltration.
Yes.
Which again, people are starting to think about that, especially with all the heavy rains we've been getting. So an important plant.
Absolutely.
So if you would just go through a little bit of how do you know how much soil to put in a pot? You do this over and over again. So what's the process that you go through? Real simple.
Depending on the plug size, we fill a pot about 3/4 of the way up, place the plug on top of that layer, apply our fertilizer, and then top dress it and finish the pot off.
Okay, so top dressing means you just put a little bit more soil in.
That's correct.
Okay. So what type is the fertilizer? A slow release, I'm assuming?
So our fertilizer is a mix. We've got 50% of it is a composted turkey manure. So it's going to give some food right away to the plant. And then all the little colored
granules
frills in there, those granules are all your slow release. So those will start to give the plant some fertilizer as the days go on. So it gets fed for 140 days.
140, okay.
Altogether.
So you won't have to, would you have to fertilize this again before it goes out for retail, or no?
No.
Okay. So once and done.
Yes.
I like that. That's efficient.
Yes.
So anything else that you would like to add to what your process here that we're doing?
I don't think so, unless you guys want to see it done.
Let's see it done, yeah. Still got 6 hours.
Excuse me?
So obviously we just potted these up, but it would be interesting, Carrie, if you happen to have a plant around, just to show the people watching what a mature plant would look like.
Sure, I do.
Ah.
So this is a mature one. Obviously, it's grown.
What's the age difference between this and that?
This one was potted in August of last year.
Okay.
And
11 months.
you can see that's the root system on a more established plant.
So, and also notice, at least I'm noticing that the roots are not wrapping around the container, which would be bad. They're just coming to the container, starting to go down. So that pot would flourish, and plant would flourish in your garden.
Absolutely, yes, it would.
Awesome. So Carrie, one of the things that's fascinated me over years is how different pollinators go to different flowers. So not every flower is going to attract a hummingbird or a butterfly or a moth. And so you pulled in fact you pulled a number of plants here, which we'll talk about, but how the flower shape is such that it is prone to attracting a certain variety of a pollinator. So you pulled a bee balm, and I always call this Indian paintbrush, but what do you call it? Indian paintbrush?
Yeah.
Okay, that works.
I mean, I just tend to use the
Botanical name? Okay.
names. So Spigelia to me.
Okay, Spigelia, okay.
Yeah, and Monarda to me,
Yep.
but yeah.
Yep. So why did you pull these two?
So with these two in particular, they have very long tubular flowers, and so you're not going to find small bees or small butterflies on it. You're going to find bigger butterflies, hummingbirds, hummingbird clear wing moths, anything that has a long proboscis, that it can actually get down into that tubular flower and get the nectar that's at the bottom.
So what's a proboscis?
It's their tongue.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just curious.
You need a nice long tongue to get to drink from the bottom of these flowers.
So obviously they have pollen in them, which is why we're in a pollinator garden area. But the pollen isn't always what the pollinator is going for.
They're going for that nectar, that sweet juice that flower is providing to tempt the pollinator to get to their flower so that they pollinate them.
What a fascinating mechanism. So Daryl, you pulled a couple of plants on your side there.
Yep, we've got a purple coneflower, butterfly weed or Asclepias tuberosa, and Asclepias incarnata, which is swamp milkweed.
Swamp milkweed, okay. So we were just looking at tubular flowers. These are a little bit different shaped, a little more flat topped, it appears.
Yes, on the flat top flowers, what you're going to find is more of your butterflies.
Okay.
It gives them a place to land.
Okay.
And they don't need as long of a proboscis as we talked about with the Monarda and the Spigelia, but they need a place to be able to land. So without that surface area, it's not going to happen.
Okay. Okay.
Which is on echinacea, a lot of times you'll see monarchs, you'll see swallowtails, as well as bigger bumblebees and carpenter bees, because there's a structure to support them.
Okay.
But we also pulled Asclepias because if you can see them, there are monarch caterpillars on them.
There are.
There's one down here on the stem, one up there on the leaves. Monarchs need Asclepias or milkweed to complete their life cycle. I mean, they'll come all the way from Mexico, and they'll basically follow the Asclepias as it emerges and as it grows, all the way up into Canada, and then in the fall it'll make its trip back down to Mexico. So that's why we did pull the Asclepias to talk about, as it's, you know, one of our missions is it's not just for the pollinator itself, it's for all stages of life. And
Correct.
if we can't provide the larval host or what they need to lay their eggs and to produce the beautiful butterfly, well, we don't have those beautiful butterflies.
So another thing which is interesting is the spotted lanternfly has been gaining a lot of interest with people, and obviously it's not native. But I read somewhere is that
I'm George Lucas, and this is my family. We are all members of NJNLA. It's a great organization. If you don't belong, I would highly recommend that you do. They have been fantastic with giving us information this year on COVID. There's always lots of great information on their websites and in their mailings. So again, I really would recommend highly that you join NJNLA. NJNLA rocks!
Good afternoon. My name is John Belaney, owner of Belaney Contracting Company. I'm a certified nursery landscape professional and a proud member of the New Jersey Nursery and Landscape Association. Each and every day I get asked tons of questions regarding landscaping, hardscaping, plantings. The one question that comes to mind, more recently a customer asked, could I extend my lawn into a wooded area? The answer to that is absolutely, absolutely. With careful pruning, maybe a few removals, good soil, and the proper seed, your lawn will thrive in partly shaded areas. As a matter of fact, the seed that we use in New Jersey will do much better with some afternoon shade. Thank you.
If you have a question for a pro, email it to growinggreenaskapro@gmail.com. If your question is selected, you'll receive a Plant Something t-shirt from NJNLA.